Good afternoon, everybody. So welcome to this session. Today's session will be on biodiversity and ecosystem services. Just one second, I try to move the slide. There is some issue with the slides. I will start in the meantime by introducing myself. So my name is Elena Montani. I'm the Deputy Head of Unit in DG Environment on the Knowledge and Green Hub, and I will be the chair of this afternoon session. We have some technicalities to solve, so we hope that in the meantime we can move ahead. Let me also start by saying happy World Bee Day. So today is the World Bee Day, and it's a perfect occasion to have this session today. I would like to start by inviting everybody to use Slido as soon as we have the slides. So just a second, I was told how to, yes, here the magic. Nothing. Cannot be moved by.
It stops, I think it's the battery.
Apologies, give us just 1 minute to solve our issues. I will, in the meantime, explain to you how we will proceed today. So we will have 3 sessions, which I will give you a general presentation of how this afternoon session will work. I will present you in general the headings of this destination, and then I will give the floor to my colleagues who will present the different topics and the different calls to you. And then we will have 3 blocks of presentations with questions and answers for each block. We will show, the slides are working now. So I would like to invite you to put questions in the Slido. So this will be the way to interact in this session. You will need to insert, it will appear on the screen now, the hashtag CL6InfoDay to join the event. And you will need, here we go, you will need to select the room on Destination 1, Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. I would like to request to you to label the question with the topic number. For example, if you're interested in aspects related to the topic Horizon CLC 2025-01 Biodiverse 02, you will need to label that in that way in order to identify the topic. Before, please check the questions which are already submitted so that you avoid duplications. You can also vote on the questions which interest to you. And please remember that if there are questions that are not answered, or if you have an additional question after the session, you can still write to us. We have a research inquiry service. You can put your question there, and we will reply in writing. So during the session, the speakers will present the topics under the headings, these 4 headings: consolidating biodiversity knowledge for nature and society, where we have 4 topics; restoring ecosystems for resilient society and economy, where again we have 4 topics; transformative change towards a nature-positive economy, with 2 topics; and biodiversity-friendly practices in agriculture, with again 2 topics. Let me give you a little bit of a policy context for this session. So as you know, all the topics in this session are very much linked to the European Green Deal, and especially they serve the objectives of the EU Biodiversity Strategy for 2030, but they also serve the objectives of the Common Agricultural Policy. The Nature Restoration Regulation is a key piece of legislation in these topics. It has been adopted and entered into force last year. So they will also serve the implementation and the research and innovation solutions that we need for the nature restoration regulation. One piece of legislation which will hopefully enter into force very soon is the EU Soil Monitoring and Resilience Law. So they will also contribute to this piece of legislation where an agreement between the co-legislators has already been found, and also the proposal for the EU Forest Monitoring Law. It will also serve the Marine EU Action Plan, protecting and restoring marine ecosystems for sustainable and resilient fisheries, and they will contribute to our international commitments for the global biodiversity framework, but also for the intergovernmental bodies that we have on biodiversity, climate change, and ocean sustainability. Overall, these calls are aiming to ensure that we're putting biodiversity on a path to recovery and to protect and restore ecosystems and their services. Let me give you a little bit of data for this topic, for this call. So first of all, you know that the call is already opened. It opened on 15th of May and will close on the 7th of September for the single stage call. There are 10 topics, of which 8 are research and innovation actions. We have 1 coordination and support action and 1 co-funded partnership, which is the second installment of Biodiversity Plus, Biodiversa Plus. We expect 20 grants, and we have in total 187 million distributed according to what you see on the slide, 110 million for consolidating biodiversity knowledge for nature and society, 60 million for restoring ecosystems for a resilient society and economy, 20 million for transformative change towards a nature-positive economy, and 25 for biodiversity-friendly practices in agriculture. Now, on the second stage call, which opened again on the 15th of May. We have 2 deadlines, one for the first stage, which is on the 4th of September, and the second deadline on the 18th of February 2026. For this call, we have 28 million in total. We have 2 topics, which are 2 research and innovation actions, and we expect to fund 4 projects. The 2 topics are restoring ecosystems for resilient society and economy, and biodiversity-friendly practices in agriculture. And now I would like to give the floor to my colleagues to start introducing the topics. So first I would like to give the floor to Gilles Doignan, who comes from RTD, from the unit in charge of climate and planetary boundaries, and he will introduce 2 topics to you. The first one is strengthening the capacity of citizen science in biodiversity observation, and the second one is strengthening taxonomic approaches for biodiversity. Gilles, the floor is yours.
Many thanks, Elena. It's my real pleasure to introduce these 2 topics. So the first one, Horizon Cluster 6 2025-01, BioDiv 02, is the only CSA, so strengthening the capacity of citizen science in biodiversity observation. As you know, citizen science offers a fantastic potential in terms of data, but also the participation of citizens, and actually really helps the whole of society. There are already hundreds of initiatives, and with this CSA, we really want to boost future initiatives, campaigns, work on citizen science with a consolidated approach. And we really want to make the best use of all the data generated by citizens. We also envisage and strongly recommend collaboration with key stakeholders, all the people on the ground, such as farmers, fishermen, urban planners, etc. The context is as Elena explained, the support to the European Green Deal, the EU Biodiversity Strategy for 2030, the EU Nature Restoration Regulation, and the European Climate Law. For the expected outcomes, we really want the following, so that the capacity for citizen engagement in biodiversity observation is enhanced. Citizen science on biodiversity is promoted, coordinated by some key citizen science experts, such as communication experts, taxonomists, etc., and really that the outputs are better harmonized. We also want citizen science to be better integrated in taxonomic networks and community. It's already the case for some taxa, but we really want to envisage all taxa, so also the little-known taxonomic groups. And we want also to ensure the full use of data for monitoring and modeling. And we want a systematic biodiversity observation. For the scope, we really want the projects to analyze all available tools, such as taxonomic fish, school kits, apps, the use of eDNA kits, website, etc. And then to collect really the best practices, what are the best tools in all the existing campaigns, and propose new ones if necessary. The project should also develop strategies, roadmaps, and guidelines to scale up citizen engagement and test them on the ground with protocols, for example, with some key stakeholders on the ground, but also with young people, for example. Develop outreach activities and materials. Identify frameworks for harmonization and standardization. This is very important, of citizen science protocols, so also harmonization and standardization of data, and explore the avenue to streamline development of essential resources, really to boost citizen science in Europe. As I mentioned, this is a CSA with a budget of 4 million euros paid as a lump sum funding. Please take note that we really try to start an overview of the existing EU-funded projects using citizen science, but also there should be cooperation with key scientific organizations and networks, such as the EC Knowledge Center for Biodiversity and its Science Service for Biodiversity, as data from citizen science will also help to monitor invasive alien species, the EASIN network from the European Commission, GRC, and also the EU Biodiversity Observation Coordination Center. In terms of citizen science organization, I will mention the European Citizen Science Platform and the European Citizen Science Association. I think that's it for this topic, and I will jump on the second one. So, Biodiv 03. Strengthening taxonomic approaches for biodiversity. And for this, I will add to what you said, Elena. This Friday is the Taxonomy Recognition Day with the slogan, "Name it to save it." And that's really the spirit of this topic. We really want to know which species we have and how we can protect and save them. As you know, there were projects on taxonomy, and there are the ongoing project Tetris and Biodiversity Genomics Europe with very successful impact. But actually, we really need this topic because there are still huge needs in terms of taxonomy and genomics, and also huge development in the field, such as the use of artificial intelligence, the field of genomics, also digital sequencing information, and really to analyze in details the genetic diversity among populations. And we also want to use this identification of specimens and species linked to many climate change issues, such as the distribution of species, which is changing for some species, and also the spread of invasive alien species. For the context, very similar, support to the European Green Deal, the EU Biodiversity Strategy for 2030, the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, and so, as I said, the links with climate and European climate law. The expected outcomes are really to ensure that the taxonomic community and its capacity to engage with and support policy and other decision-making are strengthened. We are trying for years, and this is really the last push that we need to really ensure the full use of taxonomy and genomics in protection and restoration and sustainable use of biodiversity. Also, that we have the development of strategic approaches for a systematic reinforcement of expertise and training of the taxonomic community. As you know, we really need a new generation of taxonomists to continue the work in the next decades. And this includes also the genomic community for biodiversity identification and monitoring. The scope is quite large, and you will see that we have two areas, but the two selected projects should fill the gaps in taxonomic expertise, establish, pilot, and test novel taxonomic approaches, develop strategies for systematic capacity building and knowledge transfer, compile all the open online online catalog of taxonomic and nomenclatural database in support of a common European taxonomy initiative supporting the global taxonomy initiative, for which I am personally the EU focal point. Also to support the tools and facilitate taxonomic training and establish an EU network of taxonomy and genomic experts. And this is really why we have developed two parts. The part A is a little bit like the traditional taxonomy. So it's really to integrate and maximize the impact of taxonomic work and continuing to include the latest developments in genomics, really in support of traditional taxonomy, consolidate and underline the taxonomic ground for long-term monitoring. And for the area B, this is really focusing on the genomic community, also to go to the traditional taxonomic work. So this time the genomic community has specific needs, so we really want to widen participation and accessibility of genomic data, consolidate and enhance its use and impact, and establish a comprehensive biodiversity genomic system, which, for example, will help in the participation in the International Barcode of Life and the Earth Biogenome Project. So this is a RIA with a total budget of 24 million for two projects, meaning 12 million per project. We also know, based on the experience of Tetris and BGE, that financial support to third parties is really delivering. So this is why that for both A and B, 30% of the money should go for these third grants for a maximum of 60,000 euros, but this amount could be higher if duly justified. And there are also specific collaboration and cooperation under this topic, really to focus on all the latest projects on taxonomy. There are some specific projects on infrastructure, but also there are specific projects purely on taxonomy and genomics, and I will also mention Europa Bonn. This topic is also closely linked with the previous topic of citizen science and the next topic that I think Francisco will present. And last but not least, we know that there are excellent cooperation and organizations such as the Consortium of European Taxonomic Facilities, CETAF, and the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, GBIF, it's clear that the project should really consider close collaboration with these organizations. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Gilles. And now let me give the floor to Francisco, my colleague, Francisco Sanchez Crespo. He works in DG Environment in the same unit where I am, and he will present two topics. This first one on biodiversity observations, and the second one on assessing and modeling ecosystems dynamic processes.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for your attention. I'm pleased to introduce you the next topic, large-scale in situ biodiversity observation for better understanding of biodiversity state, drivers of this decline, and impact of policies. This is a research and innovation action with a budget of 22 million for 2 projects. So the European Union has set an ambitious target for 2030, including the restoration of degraded ecosystem, the improvement of conservation trends, and the promotion of nature-based solutions. However, to achieve these goals, we need to better understand the current state of biodiversity and ecosystem in the EU. Unfortunately, our knowledge in this area is still insufficient, and that's where this topic comes into play. Successful proposal will contribute to a better understanding of the biodiversity crisis, its consequences, and the benefits of ecosystem services. The successful proposal will contribute to 2 main expected outcomes. First, competent authorities in charge of biodiversity policies will have more high-quality data and information from in situ biodiversity observation to understand the biodiversity state and trends in the EU and associated countries. And second, more high-quality data and information from in situ biodiversity observation will be available to evaluate the effectiveness of policies and business activities, and also for research, for applied research and innovation. The scope of this topic is focused on supporting the implementation of the EU Biodiversity Strategy for 2030, the EU Nature Restoration Regulation, and the European Climate Law. To achieve this, research and innovation activities should prepare harmonized frameworks for biodiversity observation, and they undertake systematic large-scale in situ observation of biodiversity, define methodologies for data quality checks, and ensure that the collected data is fit for modeling and is fair, meaning fundable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. Based on the undertaking observation, selected projects should assess the state, geographical distribution, phenology, and trends of observed species population, as well as the quality, structure, function, and geographical distribution of observed habitats. To finally, fill species and habitat data gaps in terms of geographical and taxonomic coverage. I would like to highlight that proposals might provide financial support to third parties to undertake in situ observation, and we encourage cooperation with the European Open Science Cloud and relevant research infrastructures, such as, for example, the Catalogue of Life. Additionally, projects will be asked to cooperate with other relevant projects, especially with the next one that I'm going to present, which focuses on assessing and modeling ecosystem dynamic process. So we can go to the next one. Okay. This is a very important topic, assessing and modeling ecosystem dynamic process to guide restoration activities and to improve model uses for climate. It is planned to fund 3 projects for a total of 18 million by lump sum funding. So, context, the European Union has set an ambition target for 2030, including the restoration of degraded and carbon-rich ecosystem, and the improvement of conservation trends and status of the habitats and species. To achieve these goals, we need to improve our knowledge and develop new tools to guide restoration activities. And this is where this topic and your expertise come in. So we expect that the successful proposal will contribute to the impact of this destination by improving knowledge and developing modeling tools to guide the restoration of degraded ecosystem, ensuring the provision of ecosystem services. Specifically, project results are expected to contribute to 2 main outcomes. First, national competent authorities, decision makers, and practitioners have updated knowledge and new tools based on modeling approaches. And second, nature restoration is fully taken into account in the modeling framework used for climate and land use policies. The scope of this topic is focused on developing models that can support national EU competent authorities and stakeholders for the implementation of the EU Nature Restoration Regulation, in particular in areas such as determining good condition of habitats, establishing threshold values for favorable reference areas, estimating ecological needs of species, and analyzing restoration pathways. Proposals should address either Area A, main focus on terrestrial ecosystem, or Area B, main focus on marine ecosystem, and should develop a model capable of simulating dynamic ecosystem processes, including interaction at different scale level and estimating ecological reference values tailored to the specificity of ecosystem in different territorial contexts. So in this context, proposals should prioritize ecosystem with restoration synergies with relevant areas, such as climate change mitigation and adaptation, land degradation neutrality, or disaster risk prevention. And by coupling modeling functionalities, proposals should aim at improving and expanding model use for climate and land use policies. In case of need, direct observations should be used to address data gaps. And finally, proposals should formulate practical guidelines about how to carry out restorations. I would like to emphasize that proposals should build on the result of relevant existing projects and should collaborate with other relevant projects as well as with the European Space Agency Future Earth Observation Programme. Keep in mind that if projects are going to use satellite-based Earth observation, must make use of Copernicus or Galileo EGNOS. We also encourage cooperation with the European Open Science Cloud and the use of citizen science approaches. And we expect proposal to plan effective coordination and cooperation with other relevant initiatives, such as the Knowledge Center for Biodiversity and the Science Service Project by Agora. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward for your question.
Many thanks, Francisco. And now I would like to open the floor for the questions. I will read the questions from Slido, and I will give the floor to my colleagues for replying. So the first question is, would it be possible to use remote sensing data or...
So there is nothing
on 2 and 3.
We begin with 4.
No questions for topic 2 and 3.
Okay, sorry, just one question just came in for 3. So the question is, in the case of taxonomic rearrangements or description of new species, how this topic will be able to collaborate with larger scale monitoring? I suppose Gilles will reply.
Yeah, I will reply with my taxonomist hat. Well, large-scale monitoring use several key species, and so it will not be the case of a new species. And also taxonomic rearrangements are important in terms of systematic, but will not be used for monitoring. So it's really, there is pure taxonomic work, and this is part of the topic, and there is also the use of some key taxonomic data for monitoring, and this is also part of the topic, but the two are not necessarily linked. Thank you.
Thank you. Now on 4. Would it be possible to use remote sensing data or other observations in the context of this topic? Francisco?
Yes, that's for me. Okay, let me clarify. The aim of this topic is are in situ observation, because there is an urgent need of high quality data to provide knowledge on the state and trends of biodiversity. So the activities under this topic should not aim to generate data using remote sensing data. But it's true that such data could be used together with the generated in situ data for the assessment of the state of species and habitats.
Many thanks. Let's go to the next question on 4. What is considered as in situ observation, and is drone observations considered as in situ, identification through noise, and eDNA?
Yes, so for me, okay. With in situ observation, we mean any type of observation capable of directly and accurately recording a species or an habitat at the same location as the device or person that makes the recording. So this may include, among others, direct observation by experts, automatic recording machines, including identification by sound or by images, and in some cases, when accurate time-space identification is possible, also environmental DNA. So that is.
Thank you. And then the last question is, does the expected level of biodiversity observation cover the entire trophic chain, or should the focus be on a particular part?
Well, this one I need to discuss with my colleagues in the policy unit, so I will suggest to send it to the research inquiry service and will be answered by writing.
Thank you. So we have another question. Are proposals focused on freshwater ecosystems, wetlands, rivers, and lakes eligible for funding under Area A? This is again for Francisco.
Yes, absolutely. The freshwater ecosystem, we consider them delimited within the terrestrial option.
Thank you. Now a question on 2. Which projects and organizations should we collaborate with?
Thank you. I'm not sure I should mention all of them because they are in the topic. They are mentioned in the topic. And I really want to underline the footnote number 49, where we really looked at previous topics with projects. So we really try to look at all the projects involving citizen science. Yeah, and I can very quickly say, so in terms of organization, you have Biodiversa Plus, the European Knowledge Center for Biodiversity and its Science Service being set up by the project BioAgora, the EASIN network, and the EU Biodiversity Observation Coordination Center. In terms of key organization on citizen science, as I said in the description, the European Citizen Science Platform and the European Citizen Science Association, ECSA. And then also not only the past or ongoing and EU-funded project, but also the new project to be selected under other topics under this work program 25, BioDiv 03 and BioDiv 04. Thank you.
Thank you, Gilles. Do we have other questions? Yes, okay. So we have other questions for topic 4. For Francisco, would proposals answering the call be accepted to be to both develop a new model and update existing models with additional functionalities?
Yes, exactly. We aim to develop new models and also to update using existing models that are used normally in land and climate policy to try to mainstream also the biodiversity component.
Many thanks. And then another question for you. Can you clarify what is the scope of large scale?
Yes. European countries and associated countries. So we want to do very large campaigns of in situ observation.
Thank you. We are waiting to see. There are more questions coming, so give us a second. Okay, so question for topic 2. Can you explain the role of BioAgora?
Yes, this is a very good question, and actually it concerns all topics linked to biodiversity. So the project CSA BioAgora started in 2022, will finish in 2027, and its main task is to set up the Science Service for Biodiversity within the Knowledge Center for Biodiversity. To summarize, BioAgora is building some communities of projects per big thematic topic, what they call the knowledge exchange network. So, for example, you have one knowledge exchange network, or KEN, for marine projects, another one for transformative change, etc. So it's really to build the different communities of projects so that they help each other, they know each other. And the second big task is really to help to reply to some science policy question coming from the EU Biodiversity Platform, or DGs, sent to the Knowledge Center for Biodiversity, GRC, trying to find all the relevant information. And if needed, the BioAgora Science Service is activated to look for the detailed information with all the relevant projects. Saying that, it means that any project should know that they should collaborate with BioAgora in the Knowledge Exchange Network and could be contacted by BioAgora for a specific question. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have a question for topic 4. Should the proposal encompass all 3 domains, terrestrial, marine, and freshwater? Francisco.
Yes. The 3 domains should be covered within the scope of the topic.
Thank you. So we have no more questions, I understand. So we can move to the slides again, and we can move to the next presentations. So let me introduce you my colleague, Bénédicte Blodeau, who will present 2 topics: assessing and modeling socioeconomic impacts of nature restoration, and Living Labs co-creating innovative solutions for forest, freshwater ecosystems restoration. Thank you, Bénédicte.
Thank you. And starting with the first on assessing and modeling socioeconomic impacts of nature restoration. So this is a research and innovation action with a budget of 16 million euros, for which we expect 3 projects to be funded for the use of lump sum funding. And the projects under this topic will contribute to the implementation of the EU Biodiversity for 2030, and particularly the implementation of the EU Nature Restoration Regulation, but as well as the implementation of the European Climate Law. So projects under this topic are expected to provide knowledge for stakeholders on the short, medium, and long-term socioeconomic impacts of nature restoration, including their benefits and costs, along with the social and territorial distribution of the impacts. They should make available to policymakers science-based tools to predict the impact of the implementation of policies aiming to restore nature, and make available to stakeholders in charge of financing or implementing nature restoration tools to integrate the impacts of nature restoration in their business plans. They should make the socioeconomic benefits and costs of nature restoration directly traceable to the intervention or the origin of the stressor. So, for example, the reduction of a pollution input. So regarding the scope, projects under this topic are expected to conduct sector-specific assessments to measure the economic and social impacts of and benefits and costs of nature restoration. And they should develop and validate modeling approaches to analyze the socioeconomic impacts of restoration and enable the incremental progress in nature restoration between 2030 and 2050 and guide public and private stakeholders in their continued action for nature restoration. The projects should improve the understanding we have of the possibilities and limitations of tools for socioeconomic assessment of nature restoration, and this particularly with regards to the non-market benefits. And for this topic, please note that if the projects make use of satellite-based data and services, they must use Copernicus and or Galileo EGNOS services. Proposals must also foresee some specific cooperation. They must foresee cooperation with the projects that will be selected under two other topics in this destination, Biodiv 05 on assessing and modeling ecosystems dynamic processes to guide restoration activities and to improve models used for climate that Francisco presented, and Biodiv 10 supporting the implementation of nature restoration measures for sustainable farming systems that will be presented in a moment. And they should also cooperate with the European Commission Knowledge Center for Biodiversity and the Science Service Project BioAgora. And so now going to the next one. Thank you. So this is Biodiv 012 stage, Living Labs co-creating innovative solutions for forest and freshwater ecosystem restoration. It is also a research and innovation action with a budget of 14 million euros, for which we expect 2 projects to be funded. And the proposals under this topic will be subject to a 2-stage evaluation, and projects will be funded through lump sum funding. This topic supports the implementation of the EU Biodiversity for 2030, and again, particularly the implementation of the EU Nature Restoration Regulation, but also the European Climate Law. So projects under this topic are expected to facilitate the effective collaboration among research, practice, and policy to co-develop, test, refine, and scale up solutions, methods, and tools for ecosystem restoration and for their non-deterioration. They should make available practice-oriented knowledge tools for stakeholders, stakeholders who have to implement nature restoration and ensure non-deterioration of ecosystems, and to provide advice. The competent authorities in charge of preparing and updating the national restoration plans should be made aware of effective solutions, methods, and tools for ecosystem restoration, and thus be able to propose appropriate restoration measures. And collaborations between actors across territories and sectors should be strengthened. The social, economic, and environmental co-benefits and trade-offs of nature restoration activities, including for climate mitigation and adaptation, should be demonstrated. The scope of the projects, so the successful proposals are expected to set up living labs and combine research on forest and freshwater ecosystems. The projects should conduct research and innovation in living labs to co-design, co-develop, and co-implement locally adapted practical solutions for restoration, selecting sites along a gradient of anthropogenic pressures. And they should establish for each living lab a satisfactory level of ecosystem condition to allow for an accurate assessment of changes and clear monitoring of progress. They should also monitor and assess the innovative practices for ecosystem restoration and their effectiveness, including conditions for non-deterioration. And this should include demonstration of economic viability of the proposed solutions for the end users and appropriate business models and actions. And for this topic, please note that the multi-actor approach should be used, and proposals must foresee cooperation with the European Commission Knowledge Center for Biodiversity and the Science Service Project BioAgora. That's it for me.
Many thanks, Benedict. And now I would like to give the floor to Eduardo Carquejero. He works in the Ocean, Seas and Waters Unit in DG Research, and he will present the topic on integrated and coordinated approaches for coral reefs and associated ecosystems, restoration and climate mitigation and adaptation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elena. So I will start by the context of this call. Corals and seagrass beds represent less than 1% of the ocean surface. Mangrove also about 1%, but they are home to at least 25% of marine species and support up to 40% of species of the global ocean through food webs and nutrient cycles. Half of the coral reef ecosystem have disappeared since 1950s as consequence of direct drivers of loss, and 29% of the known extent of seagrass has disappeared since its initial records. As expected outcomes, we expect a systemic approach for effective management, including land-sea planning based on functional connections between these ecosystems. We want also hands-on guidelines and training tools integrating state-of-art and IPLC knowledge with enhanced coordination at international level. We expect increased response capacity for the EU biodiversity and European and international climate adaptation strategies, supporting the effort to reduce the fragmentation of the current landscape and the resources of coral reefs restoration. About the scope, projects should improve knowledge of the functioning of these connected ecosystems, better understanding of interactions and roles of species assemblage and communities, life cycle stage, connectivity in food web structures, and complexity in coral reefs and associated ecosystems, mangroves, seagrass beds in an healthy functioning and co-evolutionary process. It should showcase joint approaches of connected ecosystems for their effective management and restoration based on functional targets, and should identify adaptation potential, for example, response by algae, possible invasive alien species, and carbon capture. They should provide cost-benefit analysis of measures of conservation and restoration and the service and benefits they provide, including ocean food webs, fish stocks, and coastal resilience. As note, EU outermost regions and overseas countries and territories have not been either addressed in previous topics, whereas they are explicitly mentioned in the EU Biodiversity Strategy for 2030 for protection and restoration measures. They represent about 25% of the EU exclusive economic zone, and they are EU biodiversity hotspots and connecting bridges with neighboring third countries. International cooperation, including cooperation tasks between projects and ad hoc initiatives and community of practice, is encouraged. As instrument, we are dealing with research and innovation action for a total of 12 million and 2 grants. Thank you.
Many thanks, Eduardo. Now let me introduce the last speaker of this block, Fleur van Oostbrummel. She will present to you the topic. Let me say she also comes from DG RTD, the Climate and Planetary Boundaries Unit, and she will introduce topic 8, which is strengthening pathways to alternative socioeconomic models for continuous improvement of biodiversity. Fleur.
Thank you very much, Elena. So yes, this topic is on strengthening pathways to alternative socioeconomic models. First of all, under this topic, we plan to fund 2 projects with 14 million euros dedicated overall. The type of instrument is a research and innovation action, as it aims to establish new knowledge and explores the feasibility of the different options. So why this topic now? This topic emerged in response to a growing recognition that business as usual under traditional economic models are a major driver of biodiversity loss, and also of climate change and socioeconomic inequality. And alternative socioeconomic models can address biodiversity loss by mainstreaming looking after nature into economic activities. So it builds directly on the objectives of the European Green Deal, the EU Biodiversity Strategy for 2030, the EU Nature Restoration Regulation, and the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. And with this topic, we aim to contribute to research advancements that have identified that there's a clear need for a transformative shift in how our economies function, to one that embeds nature and biodiversity into core decision-making across all sectors. So what is this topic about? At its core, the topic focuses on evaluating, advancing, and scaling up alternative socioeconomic models that align with biodiversity protection and restoration. It supports finding pathways to implement models that are more adaptive, more inclusive, as well as more resilient, integrating social equality, environmental sustainability, and economic viability. What are the projects expected to deliver? So first of all, new knowledge, including the mapping and analyzing of existing socioeconomic models and identifying best practices that deliver biodiversity gains, and also assessing the impacts. The projects are also expected to analyze and advance tools and metrics. So projects should provide concrete strategies, indicators, and decision support tools to help integrate biodiversity into public as well as private decision-making. Projects should also analyze real-world barriers to adoption, whether they are legal, financial, educational, or social. Things to keep in mind, so the EPIS assessments, especially the 2024 assessments, the first one being on transformative change and the second one on the interlinkages among biodiversity, water, food, health, which is also known as the Nexus report. Importantly, the topic calls for a multi-actor approach, meaning that researchers must work closely with policymakers, civil society, businesses, and local communities to co-design and test solutions. And finally, the proposal should also involve contributions from the social sciences, including economics, sociology, and educational science, as well as the humanitarian disciplines. That's it for me. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Fleur. And now I will take the questions we had for these topics. So we move to Slido again. So we have questions for topic 6. Why is the need to assess the territorial and social distribution of the impacts and benefits of nature restoration stressed in this topic? So please, Benedict.
Thank you. So restoration is site-specific, so assessment need to include the territorial and social distribution of nature restoration impacts and benefits, so we can develop robust models to measure the impact of restoration activities and support sound evidence-based decision-making to plan restoration. And this will support the implementation of the nature restoration regulation, because member states are required to include socioeconomic impacts and benefits in their national restoration plans. So this is why.
Many thanks. Other questions for you? So the call is a research and innovation action. Case studies might be needed to validate tools in relevant environment. Can you clarify TRL of tools and need for specific sites?
So here, tools is meant in a broad way and also refers to modeling approaches. So we didn't define any TRL. So this is not the objective of this topic. Is not to develop a specific technology. So this is why there's no TRL defined there.
Thank you. We continue with topic 6. The call mentions tools for policymakers and stakeholders. Could you indicate the type of stakeholders and the scale of analysis you're looking for?
So the type of stakeholders, as is mentioned, is in the topic is stakeholders implementing nature restoration or stakeholders financing nature restoration, and the scale. The projects are transnational projects, and all levels could be considered.
Many thanks. Again, 2 questions for you. One is, there is no particular ecosystem geoclimatic zone indicated. Are you going to prioritize calls to be funded in different EU areas representative enough?
So this is not specified, so this is left open to the appreciation of the consortium in preparing their proposals.
And the last question for topic 6. Could it be possible to address only marine restoration in a proposal, or is it expected that proposals cover both land and sea nature restoration?
Yes, it is possible. We will fund 3 projects under this topic, so we hope that we have varied proposals, but it is possible.
Thank you. Now on the 2-stage, are living labs expected to prioritize both forestry and freshwater, or can one of the living labs be primarily work on one of the 2 only?
So we expect living labs to combine research on forest and freshwater ecosystems. So this is an important aspect of the topic, and this is what we want to see reflected.
Thank you. So again, on the same topic, which territorial dimension should the living labs consider? Regional, or can national be meaningful too?
So this is for the proposals to consider. This is left open. What we do have in the topic is that at least 3 living labs should be set up to be located in different member states and associated countries. And then the proposal should describe the rationale on how they're going to cooperate across living labs and with the stakeholders in living labs.
Thank you. On the same topic, again on the regional focus. So are living labs with the regional focus to address specific challenges allowed in order to narrow down the scope of biodiversity?
Again, this is for the appreciation of proposals, so this is not specified in the topics or left open.
Another question for you. Do we need to plan collaboration similar to the one with BioAgora beyond 2027? Do we need to plan working with JRC directly for this?
I'm not sure I fully understand this question. I think maybe you should submit this question through the Research Inquiry Service, specifying it, or my colleagues will complement on this.
Yeah, it's a good question. As I explained, the BioAgora project will end in July 2027, but the real science service for biodiversity should be operational before that, probably in September 2026, meaning that after the end of the project BioAgora, the contact will be with the Knowledge Center for Biodiversity, KCBD, and its own science service for biodiversity. Thank you.
Many thanks, Gilles. Now another question is, how are living labs expected to provide innovation for the restoration and non-deterioration of forest and freshwater ecosystems?
Yes, so living labs allow for real-life experimentation and bring together diverse actors from business, academia, policymakers, local communities, government, civil society. So the idea is that they they can help to develop bottom-up and actionable solutions for stakeholders that have to implement the restoration measures. And they should also be tested in collaboration across territories and sectors. And in the case of this topic, the interaction and synergies between the two targeted ecosystems, forest and freshwater, should also help to shed light on the best restoration measures to be taken and synergies trade-off and so on. So this is the idea.
Thank you. Now there is a question which asks for confirmation that the budget is needed in stage 1, which is currently in the call.
Well, I think I'm co-coordinator in REA for Cluster 6. I can take this question. It is quite technical. First stage application are requested to include the total EU contribution that is requested for the project, but not the single budget for any applicants.
Many thanks, Marco. Now, why does this topic ask to combine research on forest and freshwater ecosystem restoration?
Yes, so I think I started to touch upon this in previous answers. The idea is to take a landscape approach to restoration, so to better understand restoration synergies, trade-offs, and unintended effects. There's also habitats that would benefit from the simultaneous restoration of freshwater ecosystems and forests. And we also have a specific consideration highlighted in the topic that the project should consider impacts of forestry and forestry practices on freshwater ecosystem health and how changes in forestry practices and forest management can support the restoration of freshwater ecosystem, including sediments. So this is one aspect.
Thank you. Now we have another question on BioAgora. What type of cooperation is expected to be developed with the Commission Knowledge Center for Biodiversity and the project BioAgora? So maybe Gilles.
Yeah, this is a question very similar to a previous one, but maybe the person was not there, so I will repeat. The Knowledge Center for Biodiversity was created in 2022 following the EU Biodiversity Strategy. And within this Knowledge Center for Biodiversity managed by GRC, it was mentioned that a specific science service for biodiversity would be set up to help the GRC to reply to any science policy question. And this science service for biodiversity is being set up for the moment by the project BioAgora. And should be operational in September 2026. In the meantime, BioAgora is building communities of projects per big thematic topic, what they call the Knowledge Exchange Network, or the CAN. And so you have a specific CAN for marine, one specific CAN for transformative change, etc. So any new project should know that they will probably be contacted by BioAgora to join one or several CANs. And also any new project should know that BioAgora could activate them, send them a specific request following a request received by KCBD, for example, via the EU Biodiversity Platform. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is about clarification on the terminology, establishing satisfactory ecosystem condition levels. Can you clarify what it means? And is ecosystem used for living labs, research and innovation ecosystem, or the natural ecosystem?
This is about the natural ecosystem. So, and referring to the nature directives and the nature restoration regulation.
Thank you. Can the focus be on forest ecosystem restoration in a hilly area not related to freshwater systems? We had already a similar question.
Yes, exactly. Again, the topic requires projects to work on the synergies of restoration of freshwater and forest ecosystems. So this couldn't be the whole focus of a project.
could work on living lab sites in the topics be funded?
We don't have specific, again, scale defined, so this is open and to the appreciation of the consortium.
Yeah, and sorry, I misread. It was on in the tropics. And then the last question on this topic is, does it affect the evaluation score if more than half of the consortium is composed of Horizon Europe associated countries? Maybe the colleagues from RIA can help.
I can take it. So in fact, this is not precise again. Countries from associated countries are by definition associated. They can be included, but it's we cannot say what level of composition should be done. It's really up to you. You have always to think when you build a consortium about a complementarity regarding expertise and scope. So, and we have 27 member states in the EU. So it is really up to the applicant.
Thank you. And now another clarification on the forest and aquatic. So is it really both ecosystems, forest and aquatic in one living lab or in the same project?
Yeah, the synergies between the two ecosystems and the work on restoration of the two ecosystems should be taken into account in the work of the conducted by the living labs. So effects on water regimes and so on, and the effects for freshwater restoration of forest management and restoration, and vice versa. So this should be taken into account in the work conducted in the living labs.
Many thanks. Now here we have the questions on topic 7. To what extent should proposals balance attention between coral reefs, seagrasses and mangroves? So that's for Eduardo.
Thank you for the question, because it allows us to reinforce that we're looking for an integrated and coordinated approach for coral reefs and associated ecosystems, mangroves and seagrass beds. So in that sense, to what extent should propose balance? It's a full-fledged project that we're aiming, integrated and coordinated approach.
Many thanks, Eduardo. Now another question for you. Is it okay to have a consortium with less than half EU member states, the others being least developed countries or associated member countries?
I think this was partially replied before. It's up to the consortium to develop, their consortium, so following the general annexes, of course.
To complement, it's a competitive process. So your proposal will be compared to all of the proposals that are received. And again, it's up to you to reach this complementarity, being expertise and geographical scope.
Many thanks. The next question is, the code requires consortia with at least 3 least developed countries, but is international cooperation with associated member countries encouraged?
Well, of course, associated members countries are part of the process of Horizon Europe. So we're not encouraging, but they are part of it as a member state. But I will ask my colleague to develop on this.
The list of countries that are eligible for funding is published as part of the general annexes of the work program and can be found easily, but I can also indicate the link. And for what concerns international cooperation, it is indicated when it is encouraged in the topic text.
Thank you. Next question is, would overseas countries and territories or EU outermost regions count towards the international dimension, or only least developed countries or seeds?
Thank you for the question. As it was already said, we are aiming towards the application of projects in EU outermost regions and OCT's territories. So in that sense, it's much welcome, as well as SEED's countries.
Thank you. What kind of engagement or contributions from projects are expected? Data sharing, reports, or participation in specific working groups?
It's also a good question. I mean, we're envisioning everything. If you see the expected outcomes of the topic, we're envisioning most of it. Data sharing, it's quite important. Reporting, hands-on information, everything. So we are expecting everything. That will depend, of course, of the consortium proposal.
Thank you. And can you please confirm the eligibility of partners from Singapore as a single island development state, small island development state partner, given Singapore's development status?
Well, even from the last UN classification of seeds, Singapore is there, so it is considered as a partner.
Many thanks. What does it mean in the call that all international organizations are exceptionally eligible for funding?
Thank you. That's good to also to reply. Well, we consider international organization, also known as intergovernmental organization or international institution, which is an organization that is established by a treaty or other type of instrument governed by an international law. These are the legal personality of international organizations. So in that sense, they are exceptionally eligible for funding in the case of this topic.
Thank you. Next question. Are there specific expectations on how microbiomes, periphyton, or some symbionts should be integrated into restoration approaches?
There are no specific expectations, or they would be in the call. All we are asking is that the consortium applies restoration measures approach that are integrated, as I've told you before. In that sense, we're looking for this integrated approach, and all type of restoration approaches are envisaged and are welcomed.
Thank you. Should protocols be validated only in the demonstration sites, or are broader uptake mechanisms expected by the end of the project?
Again, we consider that it's up to the proposal to define what type of protocols they will use in order to be chosen. Some can be, of course, in the demonstration site. Others can be further on the project. That depends really on the proposal.
Is there an expectation for coordination with other successful projects under this call, and should proposals already foresee such collaboration?
Yes, proposal should already foresee such collaboration. We have seen that it is recommended that future projects will deal with existing ones, with existing what we call ad hoc initiatives, also related to this topic. So in that sense, yes, it should be already foreseen, the collaboration.
Thank you. Would the Commission support or facilitate post-grant clustering activities across regional hubs like EU Pacific initiated by the consortia?
Well, this is a tricky question. What we envisage with the call is that the project per itself deals with the theme itself, this approach, this integrated approach. In that sense, what comes up of the project can be also part of the project as a deliverable. Of course, if there's policy outcomes to be delivered, then we will envisage. So it really depends on the proposal again.
Thank you. How should we include indigenous knowledge when it will be difficult to find eligible entities for this aspect?
Well, that also depends on the approach that the consortium will take towards the activities. Indigenous knowledge can be foreseen through, for instance, through the international organizations that we've spoken, but also in some of local areas that can be part of local knowledge to be accepted as important knowledge for restoration activities. So in that sense, it's really up to the consortium to define how they will take the traditional knowledge into the restoration measures foreseen.
Do all three required LDC seeds partners need to be actively implementing field activities, or can some act as knowledge contributors and advisors?
Yes, they can have different roles, of course. You can choose, the consortium can choose the seed partners that most suit the project itself. Some can be knowledge contributors, as you have spoken before, for instance, in terms of IPLCs, or they can be advisors, or they can have the hands on the ground, let's say, supporting the project in the restoration. That really depends on the type of proposal foreseen by the consortium.
Thank you. Now, what it looks like, the last question for this topic is, are proposals expected to work globally in the tropics, or is a regional focus, like in the Indo-Pacific, possible?
Well, as you have seen, we are aiming for areas that have corals, mangroves, and associated ecosystems. So in that sense, there's particular regions of the globe that can follow this possibility. So it's what we're aiming really, it's this, I say it again, is this coordinated approach between coral reefs and associated ecosystems, meaning mangroves and seagrass beds, and in that sense, they're very particular to certain types of the globe. Thank you.
Many thanks. Now we're finished with questions on topic 7. We go to questions on topic 8 for Fleur. How should economic models be interpreted? We have generally assumed as economic paradigms, but economic numerical models is also a possibility.
Yes, thank you very much for the question. And I think by answering this question, it will give clarity to a number of the other questions that were in the Slido. So the text places strong emphasis on alternative socio-economic models that support biodiversity, which include the transformative change towards nature-positive economies, but also governance, education, and finance strategies, and also the consideration of ethical and social implications and dimensions. So this indicates a broad conceptual and normative understanding of what an economic model is. So in other words, a paradigm or a framework that shape how economies function in relation to biodiversity, justice, equity, and sustainability. So assuming an economic paradigm in this context, I can say is correct. Then on the economic numerical models, so at several points, the text also calls for references, the importance of quantitative representation of socioeconomic variables, as well as the integration of tools and metrics, the use of valuation methods, etc. So these elements suggest a complementary role for numerical or computational models, which can then assess, simulate, or support the evaluation and scaling of the overarching models or paradigms here. So I think the interpretation is correct, and both apply.
Thank you, Fleur. Now we have a question which regards two topics, 6 and 8. Could you clearly outline the difference between these regarding socioeconomic models and their contribution to nature restoration? So I don't know who wants to start, maybe Fleur?
Yes, sure. So here, a socioeconomic model can contribute to biodiversity conservation by, for example, integrating human behavior, economic incentives, or social structures into environmental decision-making. That can be done through a number of different ways, including understanding human impact on biodiversity, designing incentives for conservation, balancing goals of conservation or development, promoting community participation, and so on.
Thank you. And Benedict can add on topic 6.
Yes, so topic 6 will really help the implementation of the nature restoration regulation, because this is a requirement for member states to include socioeconomic impacts and benefits, so better modeling of those impacts and benefits of restoration, and in particular including in models the non-market benefits of restoration is the aim of the topic, and that will help with the implementation of the nature restoration regulation.
Thank you to both. And now another question for clarification on the topic 8 with, in this case, topic 9. Some of expectations and scope seems overlapping with the topic 9. Can you point to the core differences between these goals?
If the chair agrees, perhaps we could clarify this after Caroline presents topic 9, just for the clarity of the audience in general. Thank you.
Yes, so we take it afterwards. Now, another question for topic 8 is, given that a lot of the biodiversity is in the global south and not in Europe, how open are you for funding projects with a focus on the global south?
Thank you for this question. This was a topic of discussion in the co-creation of this topic. It was decided in the end because the economic models that we're talking about differ when you look at the global south and at Europe, and because the core focus of this topic is the economic models rather than the biodiversity itself. So it was decided the scope was to be focused on Europe. Having said that, there is the caveat, of course, that the European economy does not exist in a silo, and that to some extent a global perspective is of course necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is, I will give it to Gilles again because it's on BioAgora. A follow-up question for the explanation of collaboration with BioAgora. Does it expect the proposal to reserve budget for such collaboration?
Thank you. It's good to see that many people are interested by the project BioAgora, and I really invite you to look at the website bioagora.eu, including all the products they have done for the last 3 years, such as some science policy analysis. For this specific financial question, I would say this was already discussed with the legal service of the Commission. It has to be understood that the request from BioAgora to some projects will be really from time to time, and doesn't mean that the project entirely has to focus on this request for 1 month, I would say. It's more just a kind of collaboration of some of the experts of one project to help BioAgora. So it takes some time, but it doesn't mean it takes weeks and weeks. So it's really, it should be seen as part of collaboration, and also the involvement of the project under the knowledge exchange networks should be considered under cooperation, networking, or dissemination activities. So no, you do not need to put a specific budget. Thank you.
Many thanks, Gilles. Now, please clarify how alternative socioeconomic models, traditional economic models, and socioeconomic analytical frameworks are defined and distinguished in this context.
Thank you for the question. So on the socioeconomic models, I think I covered in my first answer. Traditional economic models are understood as more simplified theoretical constructs used to explain and predict economic behavior and outcomes based on a range of assumptions. And then socioeconomic analytical models are understood more broadly as interdisciplinary tools to analyze economic behavior within its cultural, political, social, and institutional context, with the thought that they recognize that economic actions are influenced by more than just market forces.
Many thanks, Fleur. Does the call has requirements on certain ecosystem types that need to be included? And is it possible that the proposal only focuses on marine ecosystems?
I am not 100% sure if this question was meant on this topic, but the call refers to economic models with the most positive biodiversity outcomes. So I think to solely focus on a marine ecosystem would be extremely limiting in the scope. Yeah.
Thank you. Last one, rather for Gilles. Should socioeconomic models be area-based, or can they also be based on individual occurrences of taxa with links to biodiversity 0102 and 0103?
Yeah, thank you. It took me some time to understand the question. We really want to insist that this topic is very broad. It focuses on socio-economic models having impacts on biodiversity and how to change them to make them what we call nature positive. So no, we do not want a specific work focusing on some taxa. I would say, for example, one socio-economic model having impacts on birds or on fish, some species of birds and some species of fish. No, biodiversity has to be seen as a whole, from all the invertebrates in the soil and the ocean to the macrovertebrates. So really, and also to reply to the previous question, and well, some of the previous questions, do not forget that socioeconomic models in Europe involve a lot of trade, and this is where EU could and has an impact on biodiversity outside of Europe. We have already many projects focusing on these. So it's really about trade, commodities, but also the socioeconomic model intra-Europe. I just want to say that we will publish very soon a new leaflet explaining, well, presenting the 40 most relevant projects on transformative change. And there are projects focusing on socioeconomic models, trade, and also on the nature positive concept, such as the project Go Nature Positive. So I really invite you to have a look. But the main message is, instead of considering biodiversity first in this topic, you consider socioeconomic models first and their implications for biodiversity. Thank you.
Thank you, Gilles. So this concludes the replies to the questions on these topics. And now we move to the final round. And I would like to give the floor to Caroline Potier, who is team leader in the Green Knowledge and Research Hub of DG Environment, and she will introduce to you the topic on understanding the perceptions of and improving communication on the biodiversity crisis and nature restoration benefits to sustain citizen engagement and democratic governance. Caroline.
Thank you, Elena. So this is a topic targeting social sciences and humanities. It's a RIA with a total budget of 6 million euros to fund, in principle, 2 projects. We know that nature is important for people, and some groups and some individuals are affected by the loss of biodiversity. At the same time, nature is used as a resource by some stakeholders, which is leading to conflicts. And this topic has the objective of analyzing this more in depth. So the expected outcomes are to better understand how different groups of stakeholders and citizens perceive the biodiversity crisis and its underlying conflicts. We expect also to build innovative forms of co-creation and deliberative processes involving citizens, and also a better understanding of biodiversity crisis by society is expected. And in the scope, we expect proposals to analyze civil society's plurality of perceptions and understanding of the biodiversity crisis. We also expect proposals to pilot citizen engagement around ecosystem protection and restoration, and also to develop approaches for better communication and dissemination of knowledge. So in this topic, the GRC may participate with specific tools, and international cooperation is encouraged, and this topic requires the multi-actor approach, and it will be supported through lump sum funding. Thank you.
Many thanks, Caroline. And now I would like to move to the next topic, and I will give the floor to Vincent Chedri, who will present this and the next topic. So this topic is about supporting the implementation of nature restoration measures for sustainable farming systems. And the next topic is about breeding for resilience, enhancing multi-stress tolerances in crops. Vincent works in the new research and innovation concepts in DG Agriculture.
Thank you for the floor, and good afternoon, dear candidates. Indeed, please bear with me with these 2 last topics. I'll try to make them short and concise, and then we'll open the floor for questions. So as it was mentioned, the first topic I will present is a single-stage research innovation action. As you know, so this essentially aims to facilitate the implementation of environmental and agricultural policies, more specifically the environmental objectives of the Common Agricultural Policy and the Nature Restoration Regulation, more precisely the Article 11, which focuses on restoring agro-ecosystems. So basically the overarching objectives are that proposals of future projects will scientifically demonstrate the synergies between nature restoration and specific farming practices and more holistic strategies. In that sense, we expect that projects work and produce evidence-based recommendations that could be applied to both farmers, land managers, advisors, and policy designers. So this will help ministries to develop strategies to address the legally binding targets of the nature restoration regulation. And then in that sense, the third objective is to develop capacities for collaboration, so to bridge a bit the gap between practice and theory and policy world. In regards to the research activities, projects should focus on quantifying the short, midterm, long-term consequences and impact of these nature restoration measures in regards to the economic profitability and productivity in these farms, and also define satisfactory levels of agro-ecosystems. This will help, again, policy designers to reach for a more clearer target. Then another activity is to look at what is proposed in terms of incentives under the Common Agricultural Policy and propose recommendations and improvements so that land managers and farmers have it easier to and are supported and rewarded to implement biodiversity-friendly practices, and that it becomes the most logical and easily implementable action. And then the last activities that we expect projects to compare different holistic practices. This can be organic, agroecological, etc., so that farmers have a clearer vision on which practices they could implement. So in conclusion, this really aims to help national competent authorities to work towards the targets of the nature restoration regulation, while of course rewarding farmers to implement those more sustainable farming practices. So I will move on straight to the next topic, and then we open the floor. So this topic aims to develop breeding varieties that are resilient to multiple stress factors. So as everyone is aware, there's an increasing risk, and it's challenging to adapt to irregular weather patterns. So as we must maintain food security and resilient agriculture, it's really a major need that we propose different varieties that are adapted to multiple stresses in combination. So this can be, of course, droughts, salinization, the pests, waterlogging, etc. So this can be both biotic and abiotic stresses, and in combination. So this is a major point. So the objective is really to, first of all, deepen our understanding on how different varieties respond to different stresses. So again, this is really important to grasp, to look at how combined stresses impact crops and how crops can respond to those. And then we expect that projects identify resilient varieties and also look at traditional and local varieties, because, well, we know that local varieties have adapted to specific agro-ecosystems since quite a long time. So these are the most resilient to these crops. So it would be good to make use of these local varieties and promote them. And then it would also be expected that projects develop tools that breeders can use to evaluate the response of crops to different stresses. In regards to the activities, well, we expect and projects should characterize different traits that improve crops' resilience to these stresses. Then, well, as I said, identify local crops which have higher plasticity that will help farmers to withstand these different upcoming climate irregularities. In that regard, projects are expected to use cutting-edge technologies, all the omics, phenotyping, artificial intelligence, etc. So this will help breeders to look at genetic traits, the environment, and different management practices on farms. And the last activity is to incorporate this also in a more holistic approach, so not only on specific traits for breeders, but also how these integrate in, as an example, agroecological practices. So this is like a wider, broader strategy to improve agricultural resilience to changing weather patterns. So here it is expected that projects collaborate with agroecology partnership as an example, and they are also more than welcome to make use of financial support to third parties so that they can delegate certain tasks or collaborate with third parties on specific research activities. So in conclusion, the objective is again here to develop and promote more resilient agro-ecosystems and to leverage cutting-edge breeding technologies so that farmers can implement those varieties and become more resilient to these changes. That would be it on my end. Thank you for your time and happy to respond to any question.
Many thanks, colleagues. And now we move to the questions on these three topics. In Slido, give us a second. So here, questions for Caroline on topic 9. Please clarify the involvement of public authorities in their pilots and in their advisory board. Do public authorities need to be a partner, consortium member, or can they support during the project implementation?
Thank you for the question. Public authorities are expected to participate in the pilots and to participate in the advisory board, but they do not need to be partners or consortium members.
Many thanks. Now the next question is, the topic is both on biodiversity and the climate crisis. How will you estimate the share between biodiversity and climate research activities in the proposals?
We do not expect to have separate research activities on climate aspects. The climate aspects has to be seen through the biodiversity crisis, and we expect these climate aspects to be embedded in all biodiversity research activities.
Thank you, Caroline. Next question is, why is international cooperation encouraged, in particular with Latin America and the Caribbean? Can we propose cooperation with other countries?
The reply is yes. The cooperation can be with any country as presented by Rhea in the session this morning. We have specifically targeted Latin American and Caribbean countries because we thought there is a potential in these countries.
Thank you. Which end users are key for this call under MA? Is it okay to engage them at the start of the project, or do they need to be engaged at the proposal stage? Yeah, sorry, multi-actor approach.
I think we would need some reflection on this question. I prefer to discuss with colleagues before answering.
Next question then is, please clarify the foreseen cooperation with the Knowledge Center for Biodiversity and the Science Service Project BioAgora.
Yeah, for this I have a question to my colleagues because I already replied twice, but I understand that some people join only now. So I could say that this is recorded and that you can watch again. But just in summary, the project BioAgora is setting up the Science Service for Biodiversity to help the Knowledge Center for Biodiversity managed by the GRC And so BioAgora and then the science service, when it will be operational as of September 2026, will invite any project to join some knowledge exchange networks, specific per topic, such as a can for marine, a can for pollination. And the science service can also ask some of your expert help and expertise on specific science policy questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Gilles. Now, next question is there expectation of greater focus on policymakers or on citizens? Is it flexible depending on the outcomes designed by the consortium?
The answer is clearly a greater focus on citizens. This is a topic targeting governance to improve democracy functioning, and we expect proposals to analyze how citizens are informed and how the decision makers take this into account. So yes, to me it is clear that the greater focus should be on citizens.
Many thanks, very clear. Now this question is what we postponed from the questions on topic 8. So some of the expectation scope between topic 8 and 9 seem overlapping with between the two topics. Can you point to the core differences between these goals?
I can start. So between these two topics, we have clear differences because, as I just mentioned, on topic 9, the main focus is on citizens, information, communication, democracy, while the other topic is more about economic models.
Thank you. Then a next question is there a recommended expected duration for projects under this goal, and can projects with a budget higher than 3 million be considered and funded?
I would say that the answer is yes for the budget, and for the recommended duration, it's up to proposals to decide, but if REA colleagues would like to intervene.
There is no specific duration exactly, Caroline. For the project, of course, it has to be coherent with what it is proposed in the proposal, as well as the budget. I don't remember exactly the sentence that is in work program, but the budget that is indicated is only indicative, so higher budget can be requested, of course, should be consistent with what is proposed.
Thanks, colleagues. Now, can you specify the type of support JRC can propose and how they can be involved?
It is described in the topic. The GRC has a competence center on participatory and deliberative democracy, and will be able to provide support as described in the topic.
For what concerns the involvement of JRC, they shouldn't be contacted during proposal preparation, but for successful proposal, the negotiation with what JRC can do during the project can be done during grant agreement preparation. And there is no budget that should be dedicated to JRC during proposal preparation, but the JRC will be associated partner or in the advisory board and with their own budget.
Many thanks. Next question is there a minimum number of pilot citizens, or is it open?
It is open.
Thank you. Simple reply. Next is, to what extent projects should focus on nature restorations versus activities aimed at tackling drivers of biodiversity loss to halt and reverse them?
This is not defined in the topic.
Thank you. Are there key previous projects that should be leveraged and taken into consideration while preparing the application?
Yes, there are some projects which are quoted in the topic, especially one project from Cluster 2, which was working on the same issues but about climate. And also there are two projects which were funded under Horizon 2020 under the Green Deal call. All of them are quoted in the topic. It's not limitative. Proposals could build also on national initiatives for this topic.
Thank you, Caroline. And the last question for you is, please elaborate on pilot citizen engagement and the relationship with deliberative participatory processes. Should multiple digital product passports be tested per pilot?
I'm discovering the question, and I think it needs to be a bit reflected, because I don't really understand how digital product passport would be involved.
So maybe let me suggest to reformulate the question in writing in the tool, so that we can reply extensively. So now for the next topic, we have a few questions. So first is, how do we envision collaboration with proposals submitted for topic 6? We would not know what projects will be funded under that topic. So that's for Vincent.
Thank you for the question. So this is rather open. What we wanted to do here is that, given that the mentioned topic focuses on assessing the impact of those nature restoration measures, and that the topic I've presented aims to partially do something similar but more focused on agro-ecosystems, we would expect that these projects at least are aware of each other, eventually meet at a frequent base and exchange on their advancement, exchange on potential results, and that instead of duplicating efforts, they streamline and make use of each other's results. Thanks.
Just to complement, so what that has to be foreseen indeed at the level of the proposal, with potentially some budget for that, and then during the grant agreement preparation for the proposal that are successful, the project officer will facilitate the links and provide the contact details of the projects that are also successful under Biodiv 6.
Many thanks to both. Next question is, can you highlight the differences with topic 6 if farmers can be considered implementers in both calls?
Thank you for the question. So as I just explained, the major difference is the scope, as the topic 6 is more overarching and includes different land uses. The one on the topic 10 is more narrow and focuses more on agro-ecosystems. Both can, of course, consider farmers in their approach, which is more than welcome, actually.
Thank you. What's the geographical scope of implementing measures for sustainable farming systems? Can this be implemented in the Global South?
Thank you for the question. So as the objective here is really to facilitate the implementation of European legislation, so notably the Common Agricultural Policy and the Nature Restoration Regulation, I think that, well, the geographical scope would be much more focused on the European Union.
Many thanks. And last question is, do we need to define TRL or SRL in the proposal?
So this is not mandatory. This is a research innovation action. So as there was a bit of fundamental research which is expected and needed, we kept TRLs out of here. But now, as the objective is still to make it as practical and implementable as possible, I think that higher TRLs would be appreciated.
Many thanks. I understand we still have, okay, a few questions. So how is the term local variety defined? Only registered? Does local refer to traditional varieties? No evaluation of breeding lines?
Thank you for this clarification. So we intended to leave this rather flexible, so it's explained in the topic text that as long as proposals justify, there's a bit of margin. However, I can say that varieties that fit multiple agronomic contexts would be appreciated, but by local, we mean specific pedoclimatic conditions.
Thank you. Does identification of local varieties refer to screening existing registered varieties, or is development of new local varieties via breeding?
Thank you. I needed to pause for a second. So on this, I'm not entirely sure. I think it would be more beneficial that you ask the Research Inquiry Service so I can double check with my colleagues, which are a bit more technically knowledgeable on the breeding procedures.
Next question is it relevant to include farmers in addition to breeders?
Yes.
As simple as that. And next, should we improve practices beyond providing adapted varieties? For example, test different management conditions to optimize practices?
Yes, so sorry, as I mentioned, so not only should projects identify varieties which are suitable to multiple stresses, it is also relevant to look at those from a wider scope, because single stress-tolerant varieties will not be sufficient to face climate irregularities. So we need to look at those within more holistic practices to look at how, in combination, those allow farmers to face different stresses. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. In your slide, you mentioned, please note, support all farming systems. What does all mean here?
So next to all, there's also written legally defined. So this helps narrowing down a bit more specifically what we are implying. The reason for keeping this open is that we don't want to be too prescriptive. So I invite you to look at also what the efforts of the GRC, for example, as they have provided an inventory of different farming practices and how they impact environmental dimensions. So by all, we mean mostly defined practices and from a holistic perspective. So I've mentioned agroecology or organic as an example, but not solely.
Next two questions. So one is financial support to third parties has to be related only to develop, test, and demonstrate tools to evaluate GXAM interaction.
So in regards to the financial, the use of financial support to third parties, this is a bit open. This initial intent to make use of that FSTP is that you have a bit of flexibility on collaborating with different actors which are not part of the consortium. So as long as you provide a reasoning and a clear justification on how you want to make use of these resources, it's not exclusive to those.
And last question is, what is meant by broad spectrum strategies, referred to as additionally to adapted varieties and agroecological practices?
Yes, so this is also what I partially responded beforehand. So not only should projects look at individual traits in varieties that are more resilient to different stresses, but to look at it from a broader perspective. So here, broad spectrum. By this we mean, as an example, agroecology. But again, this is not the only approach. It should be looked at because farmers they implement different techniques on different crops, and they try different things along the year or every other year. So it should be looked at from a bit of a broader perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have replied to all your questions. I would like to recall again that if you have additional questions that we have not replied, if you have follow-up questions, you are absolutely welcome to reach out to the Research and Inquiry Service so that we can reply in writing. Now it is time to wrap up and close this session. I would like really to thank all the participants for your active participation, for all the questions, and I wish you good luck in the next stage. Thank you very much.